Welcome to the Regional Municipality of York Police Services Board meeting for Wednesday, February 24th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. On behalf of the board, I'd like to acknowledge the land we are meeting on today is the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Chippewas of Georgina Island and the Mississaugas of the Credit. These lands are now home to many diverse Indigenous peoples. We also acknowledge that York Region falls under Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty with several Mississauga and Chippewas First Nations. I would ask if there's any disclosure of interest at this time. Seeing none, I would move to the confirmation of our public minutes from January 27th, 2021. Moved by Chair Emerson, seconded by Mr. Cooper. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no presentations at this time on item 4, and we are at item number 5. And our first deputation is Mr. Courtney Betty and YRP officers and Randy May Stanford-Liebold. I would like to welcome you to the board meeting today. Mr. Courtney Betty, who is the Counsel for Justice and Equity with Betty's Law, and YRP members, Detective Constable Neil Dixon, Special Constable Vernley France, Constable Damian Muirhead, Constable Stefano Therese, and Randy May Stanford-Liebold. The original request from Mr. Betty was to speak 10 minutes in total, and the board felt that this would not give you enough time and has allowed 5 minutes for each presenter for a total of 30 minutes instead. I would ask that you would stay within the allocated time, and I'll let you know, each speaker know when they have 1 minute remaining, just to do a wrap up. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Betty.
Good morning, His Worship, the Chief of Police, board members. I want to begin by thanking you for fulfilling part of the mission statement of York Region Police. Part of the mission statement is that York Region Police would show courage and the moral strength to do what is right, no matter how difficult it is. My involvement began several months ago, meeting with these officers, not representing them on any legal issues, but my real goal was to have a discussion initially with the chief. And I can say that after sending the chief a quick note over the holidays, I was very impressed in that he responded. It was late one evening, and within 2 hours, he responded from his personal email just to show and highlight the interest that he had in hearing what these officers had to say. My background is very interesting. I have a tremendous knowledge of policing. I developed the crime prevention program for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in O Division here in Ontario. I'll tell you a very quick story. When I was asked to be hired, I sat down and I was told that I was one of the top 3 candidates, but the only challenge was that I was Black. And I said to the officer, "What do you mean?" He says, "You're gonna have to travel throughout 18 divisions, detachments. Their interaction with most Black individuals have been negative. How are you gonna handle it?" And I said to the sergeant at the time, the staff sergeant, "Give me an opportunity." That was one of the best jobs I've ever had. And that led me work to the Department of Justice, working along with the police. They're representing police officers in different situations. I've served for many years with Metro Toronto Police on different boards, all with the same goal why I'm here today, which is to see how we can build bridges between the community, the Black community, and the police. So my request is very simple for you today. You've already shown a great deal of bravery, and so has these officers in coming forward. Their stories are very hard, they're very tough. They're not targeted towards this board. It is their real history that they've suffered, but they've decided to come here today to shine some light, even in their darkness, in the hope that they can create a bridge moving forward and to be able to create a better future for York Region Police to be able to fulfill all of its mission statement, which will be an inclusive situation where you maximize the Black officers that are within your organization. And as the community changes, you now become the symbol, not only for the community, but for many other police forces. So again, I want to thank both the board for its bravery, and I also want to thank the officers for coming forward through very painful, very difficult situations and being prepared to share their story with you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would ask our first deputant, Detective Constable Neil Dixon, please.
If Neil Dixon could actually go last, he'll be the last person. There's an order that the officers have, if that's fine with the chair.
That's fine. If you could tell me who they are, then I could introduce them as they come forward.
Okay. I think Burnley France would like to be the first officer to tell his story.
And the second one would be?
Stefano would be the second, and Damien would be the third, and Mr. Dixon will be last.
Stefan would be the second, Damien would be the third, and Neil Dixon would be the fourth?
Yes.
Is that correct?
It is correct. And then Randy May will just provide a summary at the end with her background, having been involved in helping to counsel the officers.
Thank you. So with that, Special Constable France, please.
Burnley, can you unmute, please? Unmute, thank you. Burnley, you have to unmute. Unmute. Burnley, you're still on mute. Thank you. Great.
Good morning. My name is Vernon France, and thank you for having me here today. I was born in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In 1989, November, I moved to Canada on a student visa to pursue a college education. I attended Dawson College in the province of Quebec to enroll in social science. Upon the completion of college, I decided to make Canada my home. At the age of 10 years old, I have a dream to become a police officer. In the year 2002, I joined York Regional Police after the completion of the Ontario Police College. I work at 5 districts and 2 districts as a 4th class police constable. In 2003, I resigned as a police constable, and subsequently, I take another position as a special constable. Now, I am here today because York Region Police has a very serious problem. York Region Police is us, Black people. The only reason she has a problem because she doesn't want Black people here. I was constantly being scrutinized and micromanagement by my supervisor. White officer telling me that the only reason I am here is because I'm Black, so they will hire me to reflect the community. Another officer tells me in the presence of a young offender that Black people is low and most a criminal. One of the most degrading The meeting incident happened in my presence when a supervisor uttered a racial slur in my presence, demeaning Black people. In 2015, I come forward and address the issue of racial discrimination and anti-Black racism in the workplace. As a result of coming forward, York Regional Police retaliated in the form of a series of action and reprisal against me. I have suffered emotion and psychological abuse at the hand of a senior officer. I have suffered physical abuse at the hand of another senior York Regional Police officer only because I decided to stand up to protect myself. I have no faith, no trust in this organization to do the right thing. My health has been affected because of the constant work stress, work-related stress. I was hospitalized because my blood pressure was extremely high, and it's so high. I was sent to a sleep clinic so further tests can be conducted. This is insane. I'm presently taking medication because of depression and my blood pressure. In concluding, it should be noted on this record, should something happen to me, York Regional Police is responsible. And I thank you for having me here today.
Thank you very much. I have Constable Therese as the next speaker, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to tell part of my story today. I'm very grateful for that. My name is Stefano Therese. I'm 45 years old, was born and raised in Mauritius, an island that is part of Africa. I moved to Italy for around a little bit over 7 years and before coming to Canada. I'm calling Canada home. And I was a police officer back home in Mauritius for some time. And coming to Canada, I saw an opportunity to become a police officer again, to give back to the community and to serve the public. I've been a police constable with York Regional Police for a little bit over 10 years. I served in various units. I had a few recognition regarding my involvement with the community and my good work performances and everything. Following an incident in 2013, my dreams looked like they were being shattered. I was being bullied. I was being harassed. I faced discrimination by different supervisors of different ranks, including some high-ranking officers and senior management. I was receiving some threatening phone calls from supervisors, even on my days off. And I've been told some certain things that I've only heard and seen only in movies. For example, one supervisor one day told me, suck it up and move on. And the same supervisor also told me, if you don't like it that way, hand over the badge and find another job. Like I mentioned, I never thought to hear things like that before. I've only seen in movies. I've been pushed. They pushed me beyond my limits to almost a breaking point. As a consequence, I started to suffer from anxiety, unnecessary stress. I had insomnia. I had so many sleepless nights. I started to have some health issues. I had to take medication. I was getting some psychological treatment. Obviously, there was some financial repercussion as well. I feel humiliated, labeled. It gave me hardship with a relationship with my family and coworkers as well. And because the incident happened, and sometime after, I had to take some time off. And when I went back to work, I had to think, okay, what's going to happen now? What now? I started to feel scared because anything can happen at any time. And it also, another consequence was like a missed opportunity for advancement. I was so focused doing, dealing with all those things happening to me, and it did not give me enough time to focus for my career advancement. What happened is stuck in my head forever. It will never go away. And I can say that systemic racism, anti-Black discrimination, and racial discrimination are very well present in New York Regional Police. In conclusion, like I mentioned earlier, I thank you very much for the opportunity given to me, so I can tell you a little bit about the issues I've faced before. New York Regional Police have 5 core values. The second one is compassion. It says we care about the well-being of our members, all members. That means Black members as well. I would really like to see New York Regional Police really care for all the members. And the third one is fairness. We are just and impartial in everything we say and do. I would really love to see New York Regional Police treat the members in all fairness. I'm not asking for any special treatment. I just want to be treated the same way as everyone else, not being labeled as a bad one and not being found guilty based on the complexion of my skin. I'm available for any question and clarification. Again, thank you.
Thank you very much, Constable Priest. The third deputant would be Constable Muirhead.
Sorry, Damien, can you unmute, please? Thank you.
Sorry about that. Greetings to the Police Services Board and greetings to the Executive Command staff, as well as members of the public who are watching. My name is Damien Muirhead. I'm 40 years old. I was born in Jamaica. I migrated to Canada in 1995 at the age of 15. In 2003, my dream became a reality when I was hired by York Regional Police. I served in different capacities. I served in the traffic unit. I served in the core office, CIB, and core, as well as the court bureau. During the course of my career, I was recognized by both the members of the public and my fellow officers. I boasted an unblemished record. I was also able to obtain my Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Guelph, Umber. I believe it's the same education level as the Chief of Police, current Chief of Police. When I attended work on a daily basis back then, I had a very great attitude. I was a very happy person overall. My coworkers would describe me as cool, calm, and collected in those days. I must say, at that time, I viewed my life as perfect. I had made my parents very proud, and I had made my siblings proud, as well as the community that I'm from. However, in 2011, that all changed. My dream became a nightmare. I was exposed to a racially charged incident where a member of the public suggested that I should be lynched. Even though I was hurt and disgusted by the behavior of the member of the public, I remained professional and I did my job accordingly. However, the real hurt came when New York Regional Police decided to side with the victimizers who made fun of my skin color and suggested that I should be lynched. I believe that York Regional Police behavior made it clear to me that it condoned the racism that I faced. I was forced to present clear and convincing evidence over the course of a very early period in that investigation. And instead of relenting, York Regional Police persisted. At one point, my gun was removed from my locker and switched with another officer. I don't know how that happened, but it did. To this day, I don't know how that happened, and that's bothered me ever since. I was defamed by supervisors from Professional Standards Bureau, who was supposed to be investigating allegations. My wife was also targeted, where her privacy was breached by someone who's now a staff sergeant. My wife is also a police officer, been here for 16 years and served this organization diligently. York Regional Police inflicted as much harm and hurt as possible, humanly possible, to my wife and I. No one could understand how devastating that was for us. That happened, I believe, because as a Black man, I dared to stand up to mostly white men who made a decision to come after us and told them they were wrong and they wanted to put me back in my place. To add further insult to injury, the chief of the day, Chief Eric Jolliffe, decided to arbitrarily withdraw the charges without any credible explanation, no apology, no accountability. To this day, no one has said to me, how did you feel about being threatened with lynching? No one has asked me how that affected my mental state. I have made every attempt I could over the last 10 years to find some resolution, some recognition of wrongdoing on York Regional Police part. However, I've been met with dismissive behavior, such as, oh, you guys just have hurt feelings. That's all I get from them. They put up a barrier with high-powered lawyers, as well as a mountain of taxpayer dollars to wear us out. My wife and I are left to pick up the pieces of a once ideal lifestyle that was totally shattered. Our careers have been hindered. I've been scrutinized unfairly by supervisors. My wife and I have been skipped over for opportunity. As recently as last year, I was overlooked for opportunities where white officers were given opportunities over me that had 3 times less years on the job, as well as experience and knowledge of policing. My wife was also recently skipped over for a position in the organization, where an officer was given a position over her who was not even able to work and still has not even taken the position that he was given. There has been no accountability. In terms of promotion, I put in for promotion and I was scored extremely lower than my peers of comparable years and experience. I'm currently off work, and I've been off work since last May, and I'm currently off work without pay. Late last year, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of treatment I received over the last 10 years in this organization. I suffer from sleepless nights, anxiety, hopelessness. Yes, I am angry. I'm angry by the inhumane treatment my wife and I received and continue to receive from this organization, York Regional Police. To make matters worse, I see people that are involved intimately in our situation being promoted to the ranks, and that is infuriating. They obviously benefit from privilege that I do not have, and that is white privilege. In 2021, it is 2021, and we saw last year, people from all walks of life uniting against police brutality and anti-Black racism. But here we are, York Regional Police, in my opinion, my view, has reverted to what I can describe as the 1960s and 70s, especially since Chief Labarge left this organization. I appreciate that this is a different board and not the one that sanctioned the cruelty that my wife and I faced. So I'm requesting that this current board do an independent audit of York Regional Police to see how it treats. There's also, I apologize. There should also be more Black officers here, but they are afraid. And the reason why they're afraid is because they saw what was done to my wife and I in a very public way by York Regional Police. I just want to take this time to say thanks to my father, who's no longer with us. And I hope that he can rest well to know that this may be the beginning of me moving forward on a path to healing and recovery. Finally, I want to thank the board for giving my wife and I the opportunity to finally say our piece, which is what we had wanted from day one, but was never given the opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Constable Muirhead. The next person we have is Detective Constable Dixon, please.
Neil, you've got to unmute as well.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for
Morning.
having me. My name is Neil Dixon. I was born March 13th, 1974 in Kingston, Jamaica. I migrated to Canada on July 2nd, 1997. I have been a member of York Regional Police since April 2002 and have served in various capacities, such as uniform and as a detective constable in various investigative units, including the Criminal Investigation Bureau, CIB, Organized Crime, and my last assignment was with the Hate Crime Prevention Unit. Throughout my 19 years, being a Black male, I've endured various internal and external systemic racism adversities that started from as early as my training. I was told by my coach, "You are a nice guy, but not good enough to be a police officer because you have a language barrier from having a Jamaican accent." I was also told by my secondary coach, who warned me that as a Black man, I should be careful when I am out on calls and dealing with white people, as if as a police officer and being Black, I have a place or a position. Despite these countless microaggressive systemic anti-Black adversities, I have maintained an exemplary work performance in living the values of York Regional Police Service in areas of teamwork, community, leadership, competence, and training. I have received numerous internal and external recognition awards in these areas, including but not limited to a Cornerstone Award, as you can see, a Chief of Police Award, as you can see, and 2 Ontario Women in Law Enforcement Awards. I've also received a Chief of Police Appreciation Night Dinner Award, as you can see. As outlined, my work performance has been exemplary, and yet due to my Blackness, I've been overlooked and marginalized for promotion on many occasions. My immediate supervisors and YRP command have shown blatant disregard and lack of interest in my promotional application. As an example of this blatant disregard and lack of interest, it is evident in that I have not had a mandatory annual performance appraisal done in approximately 5 years. I am currently on WSIB long-term disability leave due to a workplace-related racial profiling incident that occurred on July 2nd, 2018. I am currently a victim diagnosed and suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder stemming from this racial profiling incident involving 2 of my own co-workers, who are 2 white constables and a sergeant. I made every effort for approximately 25 minutes during that incident to identify myself as a police officer. I did so verbally, and I showed my badge as well. Despite all this effort, I was still not believed to be a police officer because of my Blackness, which led to the situation escalating and where I felt I was going to be killed by my own police service. I am here today to highlight to the board the tremendous and devastating impact of trauma this incident, along with the long history of microaggressive discrimination and systemic anti-Black racism, have had on my life. Today, as I speak, I am still reliving this trauma. I am suffering from depression, anxiety, sadness, flashbacks, nightmare, and hopelessness. I am afraid to live, and at times I feel like I am better off dead. This has also had a significant and deteriorating impact on my relationship with my spouse, closest friends, and relatives, including my children. I no longer am the friend, son, brother, lover, and father to my children I once was. I have tried on many occasions to have YRP Command acknowledge the trauma I have been through and to take steps in ensuring that this never happens again to anyone. but all I have been met with is inaction, postponements, denial, and dismissive responses from expensive law firms hired by York Regional Police, which have also led and contributed to my trauma and deteriorating health. I have also experienced reprisal treatment from coming forward and speaking up against the discrimination, racial profiling, and bias-based policing that exists within the service. For this, I have been branded as a troublemaker and blamed for the incident. Other members were told to be careful of me as I am a part of Black Lives Matter, as if something is wrong with that. I was warned by a supervisor to keep my mouth shut and be a team player. I've been told no one wants to work with you. This needs to stop. York Regional Police should start living up to its motto of deeds speak, going beyond words in living up to its shared values of professionalism, compassion, fairness, courage, and respect, especially for its Black officers. I want to thank you again for your time. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. And our last speaker is Randy May Stanford LeBolt.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here today and to speak on behalf of the officers here before you and work towards engaging you in bridging a gap and having an opportunity to make a new choice. So I want to thank the York Regional Police Service and Board for being here and being open and being brave as we explore this difficult conversation today. I believe we can work together and move through this difficult reality and explore how we can come together and facilitate change. I would like to invite you to understand the value of being united from within so we can engage in the community as a united membership. My name is Randy May, and I've been a counselor for 11 years. I've worked with the York Regional Police before and have been connected to YRP in several ways. Today, I come to you with the hopes that you do have the ability to change and be the change agent in the policing community. We have witnessed the tragic impacts throughout the last year within policing culture. The policing community currently is facing the challenge of PTSD and suicide with their members. Today, I want to invite you to be a global leader as you consider forging a new path that is driven by your vision, mission statement, and upheld by your organizational values of professionalism, compassion, fairness, and courage and respect. Throughout my practice, I've provided support to individuals who've experienced workplace stress related to discrimination and racism in the workplace. When individuals work in environments that have high levels of toxicity, it has a significant impact on their mental and physical well-being, especially when they do not feel safe to report these matters through the designated channels in their workplace. There's a direct correlation between workplace stress and decline in physical and mental health. Lack of promotion is a form of systemic discrimination within an organization that can contribute to psychological distress. Discrimination, racism, and all forms of harassment contribute to workplace stress and a toxic work environment that significantly impacts employees' psychological and physical health. This form of workplace stress can result in the following, and I've noticed some of these signs and symptoms when engaging with the officers before you today: anxiety, depression, PTSD, suicide, burnout, psychological and verbal abuse that is race-based can have a significant psychological impact, resulting in racially based traumatic injuries. Often organizations will perceive that the individuals to be hypersensitive, opportunistic based on racial stereotypes, which will lead an organization or senior leadership to minimize the impact. We know that stress being a police officer without the added layer of systemic discrimination and racism has a significant impact on officers' personal, professional, and family lives. When we add the layer of discrimination and racism, the risk factors for officers significantly increase. PTSD is a byproduct of policing. The officers before you today are experiencing PTSD and race-based traumatic stress injury that were acquired while working for your service and with your organization. Continuous exposure to workplace stress, microaggressions, and overt racism can be rooted in systemic racism within an organization, which creates an unsafe environment for individuals to disclose their experiences, fear of job loss, being harassed, or being labeled as a disruptive or aggressive employee. Deter individuals from obtaining support because historically, these are tools used to oppress Black individuals in the workplace. I would like to invite all participants and listeners today in the York Regional Police Service to review the mission, vision, and values for the York Regional Police Service. As I read through, and I've read through the York Regional Police Service mission, vision, values, I see a positive framework that has the ability to be the foundation of change. I want to invite the York Regional Police Service to commit to embodying these values. This can be challenging for organizations because change requires accepting that some things haven't been working. Today, I would like to invite you to acknowledge the manner in which these 4 Black officers have been treated has not been professional, compassionate, fair, courageous, or respectful. Moving forward, I'd like you to step into your values of courage and use your moral strength to do what is right. Please acknowledge the courage of these officers that what they have today and what they brought to you stand before you through their pain and suffering with uncertainty and fear of not being seen, heard, or supported by their membership. Yet they are here hoping things will change, offering you to invest in a new commitment. Racism is the inability to see the humanity within another. It's the inability to recognize that the same privileges you believe you are worthy of, another is not because the way they look. The stories you are listening to today, I want to invite you to be compassionate as you reflect on what you've heard today. These members are your brothers. One of your organizational values that these officers require from you right now is deep compassion. These recommendations that I'm going to move through in the next couple of seconds are to give you a framework that is accessible. And some of these recommendations are things that you've already attempted to do in your service. Recommendation number 1, create an appropriate support for Black members with the intention of creating a safe physical and psychological space for members to receive authentic support. Recommendation number 2, acknowledge that there is a history of systemic racism that has impacted individuals, the community, and within the service. This acknowledgement is an important step in order to move forward. It validates the emotional, psychological, and physical impact of discrimination, racism, and ethnoviolence. Acknowledgement is a demonstration of strength and a significant step towards change. This is a pathway to rebuild trust within your membership. Recommendation number 3, to reinstate the mindfulness-based resiliency program, which provided members with emotional regulation tools, emotional intelligence tools, and unconscious bias training that is a key component of facilitating change within the policing culture. This training program was developed by John Carson and Norm Ray, who have extensive knowledge of your service and can provide appropriate training that is relevant and culturally appropriate. Recommendation number 4, support from the senior leadership team at the York Regional Police Service for the officers who came forward today. And the last recommendation is anti-Black racism training that is facilitated by Black community members for all members, starting with senior leadership. This will create an opportunity for systemic racism to be dismantled and authentic change to take place within the work culture. Building unity within your membership translates into building trust with the community and public that you serve. I invite you to be the progressive service that other members in the GTA look up to and walk with the officers who've come forward today. I look forward to witnessing the change that you have the ability to facilitate. You have a choice to make today, a significant choice that will change the course of your legacy as a police force, not just regionally, but globally. I have faith that you can and will embody your organizational values and support the wounded members before you today who are trying to heal and who are trying to invite you into their healing process. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I wonder if you could forward to my office the list that you have just read out, so we have it on file with us. Thank you very much. Thank you to Constable Therese, Constable Muirhead, Special Constable Frantz, and Detective Constable Dixon. Thank you very much for your presentations today. They certainly have given us a lot of material. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you to come here today and share your experiences. And I thank you for having the courage to do so. I'd like you to know that we hear you, and the board is committed to moving in the right direction with respect to addressing any form of racism, including Black racism. The chief and YRP have done a great deal of work over the years in addressing diversity, inclusion, racism, and systemic racism. But of course, there's much, much more that needs to be done, and you've certainly outlined that for us today. This process requires commitment, and as a board, I can tell you we are committed to doing the hard work. I'd like to thank you for being here today, and members of the board, and ask if they have any questions. Now, I can't see my board members here. I'm just wondering if there's an ability that I can see a hand raise for questions.
I think Norma has a question.
Thank you. Norma, go ahead, please.
Norma, you've got to unmute.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank you all for coming, and I've listened intensely, and you're very brave. It's more of a statement than a question, actually. I know that York Region has been working for years to, as you can see, they do have mission statements, and we have to live up to our motto. On every car, it says, "Deeds speak." We hear you, and we're committed to working to go forward. And we have a lot of material that you've given us. And I can hear the passion in your voices and the fact that you always wanted to be police officers. And we will go forward from here. Thank you for coming. That could not have been easy. I feel you and I hear you. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions or comments from board members at this time? I'm not seeing any. Norma, I wonder if you would move the presentations.
Can I just
yes.
say, I would just like to just express my real appreciation to the board for its bravery today, to the officers. Listening to their story is emotional. We're not supposed to be emotional. We're tough guys. But I really just appreciate and hope that today becomes the starting point, you know, for building a bridge that will be an example for many others. I just want to thank both of you for allowing this to happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming forward.
Madam Chair, is it an appropriate time now for me to make a comment?
Certainly. Chief, go ahead, please.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Betty, thank you for coming forward and supporting the officers. And Ms. Stanford-Leibold, I look forward to having some further conversation with you about some of the work we've done in the past. So thank you for that. I also want to thank our four officers, Damien, Stefano, Vernley, and Neil, for coming forward. It's through your experiences and you know, your stories that you've shared here today that we hope to move forward and find those opportunities together to make things to change at YRP. And you know, there are opportunities for that. I see it, and I look forward to further discussions we'll have in the future about that. I just have some further information I just wanted to put out there for you to know that you know, we take this seriously and we are committed to moving forward. We recognize at York Regional Police that anti-Black racism exists in our society and in our institutions, both public and private. Policing a jurisdiction as diverse as York Region requires ongoing efforts to build an environment of trust and respect, both in the community and in the workplace, as you've discussed here today. As you'll see in our presentation in just a few minutes, our inclusion presentation, we continue to ensure our members and our community are aware of our deep commitment to eliminate racism, including anti-Black racism in all of its ugly forms. We believe our community outreach is unparalleled amongst many police agencies, and I'm proud to say those long-term relationships have withstood the recent societal challenges and demands here and around the globe. The same hard work we do in our diverse communities must also be reflected within our organization through progressive policies, professional development and training, communication, and a commitment to bias-free service delivery. This means developing values-based standards and expectations around equity, inclusion, and respect that are reflected in the workplace, in our training, and in our promotion and advancement processes. Work being done by our members assigned to various projects and teams on our culture transformation, which you may have heard called Breakthrough, is hitting many of these marks, and I encourage you to get involved where you can. We have established an Afro-Caribbean Canadian internal support network for our members, and I've met with many of them over the past year. We've also developed an internal inclusivity strategy, once again, that we'll hear about a little bit later, that we'll be releasing in the next few weeks that addresses diversity and equity in our workplace. In the last year, we've developed mandatory anti-racism training, which has been completed by all of our members. An Inclusion Hub was also recently posted on our internal intranet, and this is a new central online resource to support our members' knowledge of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace and beyond. We as an organization and an executive command team and board recognize the work is ongoing. We won't cease in our efforts to ensure this workplace is free of the racism, discrimination, and systemic bias wherever it finds itself. And I want to thank you all once again today for coming forward and for sharing your stories. I know that was difficult, but I do appreciate it very much. And I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chief. I believe that we have no other speakers at this time. And I am calling on board member Norma. Would you move the recommendations? And I'm wondering if Vice Chair would second that motion, please. And I would like to include, as well as just receiving, that with thanks and to all of the presenters here today, you've given all of us a lot to think about, a lot to act upon, and it give so the report, the resolution will say with thanks and commitment to include you in steps moving forward.
I move that we accept the presentations.
Thank you very much.
Gladly second it.
Thank you.
Chair.
All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you ever so much. Thank you, Mr. Betty. Appreciate your role in today as well. Thank you very much. Have a good day. We have a second deputation, and I'll just wait until we have our screen. We have a second deputation, and this is Robert Vallée, founder and board chair of PACT Markham and Council of Women Against Sex Trafficking in York Region. And wonder if you are there, Mr. Vallée, to make your presentation to our board.
I've let them in. I believe they're just connecting.
Thank you. And presentation to our board.
I hope you can see me. I hope you can hear me.
I can see you. I believe the rest of the board will be able to see you. Welcome. Good to have you with us today. I understand you're going to make a presentation about 5 minutes in length or less.
Ah,
And I will, is that what you understood as well?
well, that's always the goal, isn't it? I just want to emphasize there was another guest. I see on the screen Marnie Hill. Marnie Hill is the Director of Communications for the Council of Women Against Sex Trafficking in York Region. And our understanding is that she might be speaking first, but I do not see her on the screen nor hear from her. Can anyone assist?
I can see her on the screen and her microphone is blocked. So Marnie, if you are there and you can turn on your microphone. There we go. So are you're sharing the time together? Is that how it's going to work, or just so I know?
With your permission, Marnie to go first, and I will follow up with my presentation, if that's all right with you.
Very good. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Marnie, go ahead, please. And your mic is muted at this point.
Still muted, still muted. Hello, Marnie.
You're still
Hear you,
muted,
Marnie.
Marnie. There. Thank you.
We can hear you, yeah.
You've muted your mic again.
Try it again, Marnie.
There you go. Don't touch anything. Nope. You've muted it again.
Yeah.
There you are.
Don't touch anything. Poor thing. Poor Lord.
You're still muted. There. Don't touch anything.
It won't stay unmuted. I'm sorry.
Well, start talking. It's working right now, so that's a good thing.
Okay. Madam Chair, board members, thank you. As Director of Communications for the Council of Women Against Sex Trafficking in York Region, I particularly want for Ms. McCullough and the new deputy chiefs to be up to speed with our efforts in the fight against the systemic sexual exploitation and trafficking of women in York Region and why we are here today. Let's go back in time, 14 months ago, December 4th, 2019. Our board chair and CEO, Robert Valley, made a deputation to this board. For the record, the minutes of that meeting show that this board requested then Police Chief Jolliffe to provide a response in the form of a report to the board. What you may not know is that following our deputation, our two groups met with PC Jolliffe, DPC Bigra, and Inspector Wilson of Major Investigations. In that meeting, PC Jolliffe committed to YRP's Special Investigations Division to examine our claims of criminality within body rub parlors in Markham, led by Inspector Wilson, reporting to DPC Bigra. A report to be ready in April of last year for submission to the board. At first, Inspector Wilson provided email updates to Mr. Valley. However, the reports and the investigation stopped in mid-April when PC McSween took over from Jolliffe. On 3 occasions over 6 months, Mr. Valley personally delivered letters to YRP headquarters requesting an electronic meeting with the chief to discuss our concerns and investigations. Not once were those letters acknowledged, no meeting invite ever sent. That is until mid-January 2021, when the chief learned that we would be presenting here today. Now he was interested, we were not. For us, it was too little, too late. Just like his investigation and report. Again, too little, too late. My deputation today challenges the report finally submitted by Chief McSween this past November 25th on 2 fronts. 1, it failed to provide relevant and accurate data that would support any direction or guidance issued by the board. And 2, it failed to address the concerns we tabled on December 4th, 2019, read the operation of illegal body rubs in Markham. Given I have only 5 minutes, I'll only quote 2 of the many generalizations of the report. First, not all body rub parlors, massage parlors, wellness centers offer sexual services. For me, the obvious flip side is some do. No quantifiable data was provided, number of investigations conducted, or findings refound to support the statement either way. The report also states, and I quote, "The majority of trafficking victims are aware that jobs offered," and I put offered in quotes, "to them are in the sex industry, but not aware of the conditions in which they will be working." What conditions? What is being done to address those conditions? Or is it assumed that they don't deserve an investigation? The board needs specific, the public does too. Especially when you listen to the survivors talk of the horrific conditions that they have to endure in local body rub parlors, and to those trafficked in private homes as they are sold like slaves through beauty pageants. Let me quote, "I was hit, spit on, choked, and beaten. The owner called us his stable. After hours, he'd send us out to parties, stags, to his own friends, anywhere he could make money. It wasn't a massage parlor, it was a brothel. The owner was my pimp, a pimp licensed by the city. Police and bylaw officers inspected our facilities, and yet it continued to operate. No one appeared to care or notice that our situation was unbearable. Sex trafficking, drugs, I saw it all." End of quotes. There you have it, board members. The chief's report leaves you uninformed about the true nature of body rub parlors in York Region, and that is unacceptable. In closing, I tabled with Ms. Avellino a copy of the many questions the report generated and failed to address. Answers and actions are required. The victims of systemic sexual exploitation in York Region deserve better, and so do we. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vali, were you going to speak as well?
Yes, I am. And I want to thank Marnie for doing this in 4:57 seconds. So I've got 3 to add to my tight presentation, and I have not begun yet. Okay. This morning, I'm asking this board, in an act of stewardship on behalf of York Regional Police, to petition the Premier, Solicitor General, and Attorney General to instruct the Minister of Housing and, of course, municipalities to table the legislature, radical amendments to 2 sections of the Municipality Act of 2001. These amendments will criminalize activities related to body rub parlors, erotic spas, strip clubs, and adult entertainment parlors, thereby shutting down their illegal commercial enterprises. Furthermore, we ask this board to act quickly so that Mr. Ford's government can pass this legislation into law in direct support of his government's commitment to fight human trafficking province-wide. Now, here's our rationale in support of our request. Canada's Criminal Code, since 2014, Section 286.2 has stated, and I quote, "It is illegal to earn money by owning, managing, or working for a commercial enterprise such as a strip club, massage parlor, or escort agency, knowing that sexual services are purchased there." End of quote. Now, you would think that 6 years later, Ontario communities would be free of these commercial enterprises because their owners, operators are either in jail or they lost their licenses or exited the business, correct? Not at all. Look at the facts. 7, I repeat, 7 York Region municipalities share 135 plus body rub parlors, erotic spas, and bogus wellness centers. The 2 exceptions are found in King and Stouffville, 0. Markham is host to 50. I'm so proud to be a Markham resident. And of course, Vaughan leads the way with 50 body rubs plus 3 strip clubs. And by the way, many of these enterprises are not licensed, I repeat, not licensed by their respective municipalities. Fact, Markham licenses only 10 of its 50 BRPs. Newmarket licenses only 2 of its 12 that are operating without a license. And that brings me to fact number 3, and I want to thank Wayne Emerson for introducing me to Tracy Steele, who's the Director of Standards in the Community in Richmond Hill. Here's what she told me. Robert, Richmond Hill has not issued any body rub parlor licenses for over a decade. That's since 2010. During 2019, 17 body rub parlors in Richmond Hill continued to operate without a license and to offer sexual services in contravention of criminal laws. She went on, during a 6-week period in late 2020, inspections were conducted at 23 businesses operating without the required license. They were suspected of providing body rub services. End of Tracy's quote. Talk about defiance of the law. On that note, shall we turn to the number of arrests made by YRP in the past 3 years? Listen up. There were 186 incidents of A, buying sex, 2, procuring women for sex, 3, advertising sex for sale, and 4, for the operators receiving a material benefit from the purchase of sex. The hard fact is as follows. 3 municipalities out of 9 at 79% of the 186 incidents. Markham, Vaughan, and Aurora in that order. The remaining 6 had 21%. Let's talk about buyers of sex. 63 buyers of sex were charged over a 3-year period. And there's a breakdown here. 26 prostitution-based buyers, that's 26. Then 37 trafficking of persons under the age of 18 buyers. Interestingly, 3 municipalities had 0 buyers in either category. King, Stouffville, Georgina, while Miss Haxon, East Gwillimbury had 1 buyer. Now, what's the problem? According to RCMP's Criminal Intelligence Report on Human Trafficking, and I quote, sexual exploitation and human trafficking have been found to occur discreetly behind prostitution fronts like body rub parlors, massage spas, escort agencies, and residential brothels. Now listen carefully.
Will you start to wrap up, please?
Yes, I will. It is extremely difficult, says RMP, for law enforcement to detect without proactive investigation. Now, to our group of activists, that quote means that YRP must make a bigger and ongoing commitment to carry out investigations, explaining Marnie Hill's deputation. You know, as a firefighter once told me, when you see the blaze growing and growing, it's time to escalate. And we bring in the water bombers. Therefore, say yes to my ask, which is make the water bombing Ford government change the laws so that they will criminalize activities related to body rub parlors. Have I been cut off?
No, but you're close.
Well,
Wrap up, please.
I will. I got 3 more lines and applause. Earlier, I said your stewardship is required. Specifically, we are asking you to petition the Premier to do as per our request, meaning let's get the body rubs off the police agenda and let's have the legislative agenda put them away out of business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vallee. Questions from members of the board? I'm not seeing any at this time. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the presentation from Mr. Vallee, please? Chair Emerson, Mr. Purchell? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. We'll follow up.
Thank you. I'm moving along in our agenda. We now have communications, and the first one, 6.1, is correspondence from Laura Marabella, Commissioner of Finance and Regional Treasurer. Are there any questions regarding the correspondence?
Madam Chair, I'll put a motion to receive the letter and the chief, you'll be coming in a couple weeks to make your presentation. We're trying to keep all the presentations down, from transportation to environmental services to community health and corporate, down to about 20 minutes or so with everyone, and so that you can get your highlights. You've been to council, so I would strongly suggest give us the highlights going forward. I'm not sure where this budget is going to land. As you know, we talked about this before. 4 municipalities, I think it's 4 municipalities, have gone to zero. I'm concerned if we go to zero, we have a lot. It will affect our reserves and that going forward in the years to come. So, but anyways, I'm not sure where to land. We'll do the first 2 weeks, the 4th, the 11th, take a week, 2 weeks off to see where that, and then bring a further report back to the budget, to the council agenda. You're more than welcome to listen in as the chief presents. I think he's #1 in the docket on March 11th. Madam Chair, I'll move the receipt of the letter from Commissioner Marabella.
Thank you very much. And a seconder, please. Mr. Cooper. All those in favor? And that's carried. Second item, 6.2, is correspondent from Richard Stebbing, Assistant Deputy Minister of the Solicitor General. Any questions and comments regarding this correspondence?
Madam Chair, just to let you know, the board report for this is coming in March, so just it is coming.
Very good, thank you. And could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mr. Cooper? And Mr. Purchell? All those in favor? And that's carried. We are on item 7, items for considerations and reports of the chief. Go ahead, Chief.
Yes. Morning, everyone, once again, and Madam Chair, through you. As you can see, this is the annual report on our equity and inclusion strategy. And we're looking for approval of the board on our action plan from 2020 to 22. I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Hammond to offer some comments and introduce our 2 presenters, because it does come with the presentation to highlight the strategy. So, Deputy.
Thank you, Chief. And good morning, everybody. Through you, Madam Chair, this report is being submitted in accordance with the board's inclusion policy. It outlines our 2020 to 2022 inclusive policing action plan. The supporting documents attached to the report highlight 11 ongoing performance indicators covering recruitment, training, leadership, coaching and mentoring for supervisors, wellness, and a review of career opportunities and supports to remove barriers and biases, as well as a review of our workplace harassment procedures and equitable service delivery. We are seeking approval of an organizational inclusion strategy which aims to prevent discrimination and harassment in the workplace and in the delivery of services to the community. I would like to turn it over to Superintendent Ricky Virapan, who is in charge of community services and our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Bureau, who will provide a presentation on the strategy along with our inclusion specialist, Alicia Lozon. Ricky?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Deputy. Good morning to all of you. I hope everyone is well. I will have a few comments in the middle of the presentation, but I will have some towards the end, really, that speak to some of the language that we're considering with regards to the direction that we're headed at York Regional Police, particularly in relation to anti-Black racism and the very specific language that our communities have told us that are so important in addressing this. And secondly, also a point with regards to the equity and inclusions specialist and consultant that we're looking at right now, someone with lived experience to help us through and guide us through this process. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce a colleague of mine, Alicia Lozon. Alicia is the Equity and Inclusion Specialist at York Regional Police and is responsible for the alignment of systems and policies in supporting human rights and equity while creating an inclusive organizational culture. Alicia achieved a master's degree in equity studies and currently leads York Regional Police's inclusion strategy. In 2020, Alicia became a member of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. And in 2021, was appointed as co-chair to the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Working Committee. Alicia will lead up the presentation, and we will have some comments at the end. Thank you very much. Alicia?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. And thank you for the opportunity to present York Regional Police's first Inclusive Policing 2020 to 2022 action plan. Next slide, please. So I'd like to begin sharing with you how we actually got to an inclusion strategy. A number of initiatives over the past few years have led to the development of an inclusion strategy. In 2014, York Regional Police introduced internal support networks to the organization, and they were created to support our members both personally and professionally. At York Regional Police, we have 5 ISNs, as we like to call them: the African Caribbean Canadian ISN, Women in Leadership, Pride, Christian, and Can Be Conquered for those members experiencing cancer. And they really have been instrumental in advancing equity, diversity, and inclusion in the workplace. For example, Women in Leadership proposed a gender equity strategy, which has now been adopted by Breakthrough. Pride delivers positive space training to our recruits, newly promoted staff sergeants, communications, and it's raising awareness of our 2S LGBTQ+ communities, lived experiences, and appropriate terminology. And most recently, mandatory anti-racism training and an anti-racism action plan originated from our African Caribbean Canadian Internal Support Network. In 2018, YRP launched its first census and inclusion survey. And the intent was to explore the diverse needs and perceptions and experiences of our members, to identify possible barriers and solutions to a more inclusive work environment, and to seek opportunities to enhance a workplace of inclusion, fairness, and respect. Breakthrough is leading the organization through transformation culture change. Through various focus groups, surveys, and consultation sessions associated with projects underway, members have highlighted opportunities for evolution relating to our workplace culture. In order to remain at the forefront of policing, YRP must examine the mindset and behaviors of its members along with systems and processes. This will allow us to be progressive and a supportive workplace. And lastly, mandatory anti-racism training took effect in 2020. It's part of a larger program that will benefit and deepen YRP's understanding of systemic racism in policing. Our presentation overview this morning consists of an overview of the Inclusive Policing Action Plan 2020 to 2022, the action plan's accomplishments, and the path forward for 2021. As directed by the Police Services Board Equity and Inclusion Policy, we are pleased to present York Regional Police's inclusion strategy, known as the Inclusive Policing 2020 to 2022 Action Plan. It covers the 4 areas that you see here: employment, professional development and training, communication, and service delivery. The aim of the action plan is to promote equity and inclusion throughout YRP and also to prevent discrimination and harassment in the workplace and out in the community. As the action plan progressed, we noticed that the findings from other breakthrough projects also related to equity and inclusion with similar goals. And so it made sense to harness some of those breakthrough projects initiatives and integrate them as part of the action plan. The primary focus of the plan is on York Regional Police's pillar of our people. And from there, it transitions out to our second pillar, which is our community. Strengthening the internal building blocks of equity, diversity, and inclusion gives us a solid base of knowledge, skills, and abilities to service the community. So let's go over the plan to see how it all came together. First, there is our shared goal up at the top. Inclusion is essential in the way that we work. All members feel safe, respected, and valued for who they are. Inclusion inspires us to do our best work for each other and those that we serve. Second, there are 4 pathways. Diversity, we value diversity. Equity, we implement equitable systems and practices. Skill, we develop competent skills at working inclusively. Growth, we aspire to advance inclusive and innovative practices for our members and the community. Third, underneath each pathway are a set of 10 objectives. 10 objectives are achievable and manageable. Recruit and retain a talented and diverse workforce that reflects the community. Review talent management processes to ensure equitable opportunity. Incorporate measures that ensure York Regional Police members are treated fairly. Reduce harassment and discrimination in the workplace. Support members to be advocates for equity and inclusion. Support leaders to be advocates for equity and inclusion. Develop awareness of the link between equity, inclusion, and personal well-being. Elevate and advance equity and inclusion within York Regional Police and York Region. Develop public reporting on equity and inclusion, and strengthen practices that reduce barriers and foster belonging between police and community. These action-based objectives come from inclusion project findings and additional breakthrough project findings that members provided input on. The plan is truly member-driven. What does the action plan mean exactly for members and the community? Employment processes that are equitable. The inclusion team is working with uniform and civilian recruiting to determine ways to attract a greater number of qualified candidates. Talent management practices that are bias-free. The inclusion team is working with the People and Talent Committee to reevaluate professional development systems and processes with an inclusion lens to help achieve equitable career opportunities for all. Members live values-based behaviors. The inclusion team is part of Breakthrough's harassment subcommittee and has reviewed YRP's workplace complaint system. Its purpose is to develop a trustworthy, fair, and effective reporting system and investigation process. Leadership that is consciously aware. Throughout the past 2 years, leaders of various ranks have participated in Walk the Talk of Change, reflecting on a shift in mindset considerate of inclusive behaviors. This is an intensive 5-day working session that is a catalyst for developing YRP leaders from the inside out, enabling them to transform mindsets and behaviors to help drive organizational change. A workplace that is healthy and well. Our wellness strategy provides effective services, programs, and training that is accessible and non-judgmental. Service delivery that is fair and respectful. Professionalism in policing is and always has been essential for building and sustaining public trust. The Professionalism Project is working to sustain public trust, develop a culture of ethical leadership, and ensure we are aligning our behaviors, processes, and policies with WIRE's Code of Ethics and its values. Let's highlight some of the actions that we've worked on in 2020. In early 2020, the inclusion team began a review of our employment processes. We want a talented, diverse workforce. Both uniform and civilian recruiting have completed a review of certain areas in their recruiting processes using gender-based analysis plus. We want to ensure that all segments of the community are considered and we're not just meeting an arbitrary quota. Changes made to the pre-application testing stage at the constable selection process remove previously identified barriers for diverse female applicants. For diverse and female applicants. From January 2020 to May 15th, 2020, the number of applicants increased 148%. Female applicants increased by 380%. Diverse backgrounds increased 160%, and females from a diverse background increased 400%. Total administration of the entire recruitment process allowed recruiters greater opportunity to build those relationships with applicants earlier in the process to provide mentorship and guidance at every stage. Civilian recruiting unit examined language used in job postings. Commitment to finding the best people also includes attracting a diverse pool of applicants. It's not enough to list qualifications, key duties, and then a disclaimer about how equitable an employer we are. The review revealed the applicant tracking system used to screen applicants does not screen job postings for appropriate use of inclusive language. Organizational jargon or insider language can make applicants feel like an outsider. Sure, it may make sense to a recruiter and a hiring manager, but to an applicant, it really does appear like a foreign language. The requirement of specific educational backgrounds may exclude low-income applicants who cannot afford to attend university. And if you're wondering what Gender-Based Analysis Plus is, it's an analytical process used to assess how diverse groups may experience policies, programs, and initiatives. The plus in GBA Plus considers multiple identities, factors such as mental or physical disability, race, national or ethnic origin, indigeneity, age, language, and sexual orientation, to name a few. GBA Plus also considers systemic barriers. Recruiting is one of the many steps towards equity and inclusion. A talented, diverse workforce needs to be able to develop and advance in their careers. We aim to level the playing field for all talent. The People and Talent Project was created to identify opportunities and recommendations about staff development, the promotional process, and the performance appraisal system. The inclusion team is partnering with People and Talent Committee to reevaluate the talent management processes and supports to remove biases and barriers. Part of the People and Talent Committee's objective is to source a talent management system. A talent management system is a software application that would give YRP the capability to leverage data to make fast, transparent, and effective talent management decisions in career development, training and development, and performance management. Learning never ends. Mandatory anti-racism training began at York Regional Police in 2020. The Ontario Human Rights Commission's e-learning course provides us with the foundation for learning about race, racial discrimination, and human rights protections under Ontario's Human Rights Code. The course offers a historical overview of racism and racial discrimination, explains what race, racism, and racial discrimination mean. Since 2019, more than 80 leaders of various ranks have participated in Walk the Talk of Change for Leadership. The learnings focused on vertically developing conscious leadership through increasing self-awareness, solving problems using a broader perspective, creating a culture of trust and collaboration, improving communication and listening, relating to others in a way that lessens resistance and builds commitment, putting the success of the organization ahead of personal agendas. Living values-based behaviors encourages fair treatment and respect for each other. The Harassment Subcommittee was formed to address findings based on the 2018 Census and Inclusion Survey, Project Vanguard, and results from the 2019 Organizational Culture Survey. The Executive Command Team have approved a number of recommendations, including the design of a workplace conflict response model, which aims to better manage reports of workplace conflict and harassment, develop members through training and personal development to effectively deal with conflict in the workplace, and support a professional and respectful workplace, and to have a member-centric approach to support psychological safety and inclusion. These changes aim to ensure our members feel that they can work in a workplace that doesn't tolerate forms of harassment, and to actively demonstrate YRP's commitment to eliminating harassment and discrimination in our workplace. We continue to advance our awareness. It is important to maintain high levels of knowledge, skills, and abilities regarding investigations. Confronting hate and bias crimes relies on good investigative training. York Regional Police recognizes that the response to hate and bias crimes cannot be made by law enforcement alone. Government, police, community organizations, and individuals must be committed to working together to stem hatred in society. It is with this forward thinking that York Regional Police hosted a hate crime conference and awareness workshop, recognizing the community impact of hate crimes and hate bias incidents. Ontario Police Services learn from various community groups and each other on how to combat hate crimes, maintain public trust, and increase confidence in the policing profession.
And I will just add in at this point right here, I'll just want to just touch a little bit on the hate crime conference that we did that Alicia refers to in 2020. The workshop, the conference began with a welcome from the Police Services Board of York Region, an executive command panel made up of Chief McSween, Chief Nishan Durayapa from Peel Regional Police, as well as Ontario OPP Commissioner Tom Carrick. Some of the keynote speaker for the event was Honorable Justice Michael Tulloch, who delivered the keynote address. We had presentations from the Hate Crime Extremism Investigative Team, the UJA Federation of Greater Toronto speaking about the community impact of anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic hate crime. We had presentations from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association speaking about the importance of knowing your rights and the importance of sharing that information with all members in our communities. Presentations from the Coptic Orthodox Church, of which we have 5 within the region of York. We had presentations from the Crown Attorney and the Attorney General's Office regarding hate crime legislation and hate crime propaganda. We had a special presentation on policing hate crime challenges and opportunities presented by Dr. Barbara Perry, who is an international expert, a subject matter expert on hate crime and extremism. We had a special presentation on COVID-19 racism against Chinese and Southeast Asian communities that have been impacted since the beginning of COVID from January of 2020. A presentation from the president of PFLAG York Region, Tristan Kuhlman, on the impact of homophobic and transphobic hate crime against 2S LGBTQ2+ communities in the region, cybercrime presentations, as well as a presentation from the National Council of Canadian Muslims on Islamophobia and its impact on communities across the region and Canada, as well as a presentation on community impact from Margaret Parsons, the former executive director of the African Canadian Legal Clinic, who went through a toolkit on anti-Black hate and how to respond to it. And then, of course, the presentation also from Dr. Shaheen Azmi, who was a senior policy advisor on education with the Ontario Human Rights Commission. And the final presentation that we wrapped up with was one which impacts about roughly 50 families living in York Region. And this was a presentation from the Yazidi community. And as many of you know, the Yazidi community were the victims of genocide, and many of them are in the region as refugees. So we had a presentation from the president of the Yazidi Human Rights Council, and we thought it was important that the conference focused had a victim-centered perspective in terms of the community presentations, to inform and advise our members how to investigate hate crime. All the work that we do in promoting human rights and trying to police through the lens of human rights and striving to police through the lens of human rights. On the one side of the coin, you've got all the proactive work that is done by our hate crime prevention unit, our diversity teams, and all the other work that's done at York Regional Police. But it's also important for us to have a very strong investigative response internally and externally when we're dealing with hate incidents and hate crime. And the coin that we speak about, because both of these represent two sides of the same coin, and the coin that we speak about is human rights. So on the one side, we honor and celebrate human rights, and on the flip side, we respond promptly when any of the attributes of human diversity and authentic identities are violated through criminality, making it hate crime. So I'll turn it back to Alicia to continue. Thank you.
And plans are already underway for our 2021 workshop. Looking forward into 2021, the Chiefs Equity Advisory Committee will oversee the Inclusive Policing Action Plan, and it's tasked with the following work plan that you see here. To implement the Inclusive Policing Action Plan, which we discussed about earlier, York Regional Police originally conducted a 2018 Census and Inclusion Survey, and we will follow up with a 2021 Census and Inclusion Survey. And of course, an anti-racism action plan has begun in 2020. York Regional Police's anti-racism action plan consists of 5 actions. The development of an anti-racism strategy, which has been completed. And with this, the action plan will strive to embed anti-racism throughout employment, professional development and training, communications, and service delivery. The outcomes will be more inclusive and equitable workplace and an organization that is fair and respectful to everyone. A working group will be formed to action the plan. Collection of race-based data in employment. We are discussing as to how to best implement this. The launch of a multi-year anti-racism training program, which was rolled out in September 2020. The establishment of a Black Canadian Community Consultative Roundtable, which had their first meeting on February the 16th, 2021, and also to host an anti-racism forum. This is timely as next month's Police Services Board meeting, York Regional Police will be responding to a number of recommendations based on community feedback and stakeholder submissions relating to eradicating anti-Black racism and strengthening public trust and confidence in policing.
Thank you. And on that note, thank you very much, Alicia. And on that note, I'd like to just come back to a couple of the points that I made at the beginning of the presentation. One of it really addressing language, and specifically the language of anti-Black racism, which we've heard loud and clear from many, many members of our Black communities through various conversations and discussions, and including the meeting that we had with members of that group about a week ago. We've also heard about the importance of having a consultation with equity and inclusion specialists and people that have lived experience speaking about anti-Black racism. And so we certainly acknowledge that, and we're taking all of those considerations into mind. And finally, with regards to anti-Black racism training, currently we have about 4 or 5 different people that have approached us, all of them with lived experience that have submitted packages to York Regional Police, which we're sharing now with our training branch, and we're in the process of exploring candidates to help us and guide us through this process as we tackle and disrupt and dismantle and eradicate anti-Black racism and racism in all of its forms within our systems. Thank you very much.
So we hope that you can see how our path forward aims to sustain an organization that is inclusive, safe, and healthy for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alicia, what a presentation. Very well done. And Superintendent, thank you for being a huge part of this initiative that we have moving forward. Very exciting. Questions from our board members, please. I'm not seeing.
Madam Chair, Ms. Fang has a question.
Ms. Fang, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you to the team for the wonderful presentation. I have one comment and 2 quick clarification questions, please. My comment is, I think this strategy has been developed and rolled out as part of the Breakthrough Initiative since 2019. So this presentation is more of an interim update as to the actions that have been taken place by YRP on D&I strategy. So I just want to clarify that we don't want to leave the impression that this is a new strategy that we just start to roll out, getting the board approval. And if so, it's 2020 to 2022. Like we already passed 1 year. So I just want to clarify that this is developed, rolled out in 2019 for the 3-year period of 2020 to 2022. So this is just a status update to the board. And so this is my comment. And then my 2 quick questions is, one is on collecting data. We all know that one of the best practice of D&I begins with systematic method to collect data and do reliable data analysis. So I understand we did in 2018 the census. I'm just wondering, at that time, did our census survey, the data, include all dimensions of diversity? So we know, as our chart shows, it's not just gender, sex, there are also race, ethnicity, all different. So I'm just wondering, if the 2018 data has already included those various aspects of diversity. So we have a view of how it looks, the current state of our members, both civilian and uniform. And if not at that time, I trust that this next census coming up will be more fulsome, more inclusive in all various aspects of diversity related data. And then my last clarification question is, I'm wondering if we have a whistleblower policy or practice. I think sometimes people may not be comfortable going to their supervisor directly. So this discussion just reminds me of a practice in the public company board. It's actually usually the chair of the audit committee has to develop a whistleblower policy and framework together with the legal counsel. So I'm just wondering if we have a whistleblower policy or practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fang. There's several questions there. Who might want to answer those?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Fang. I will speak to the just to the alignment of this inclusion strategy with our 2020 to 2022 business plan. So it is in perfect alignment. And as you said, even though we were in 2021, all of this work began some time ago, and it moves us towards the completion of this within the framework of the 2020 to 2022 business plan. With regards to the capturing of all the elements of human diversity, Alicia will be able to speak to that.
Yes, so definitely for our 2018 Census and Inclusion Survey, we engaged the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion, and we worked with them through the demographics of, and Ms. Fang, you talk about the dimensions of diversity. So yes, we do ask questions around such things as gender identity, sexual orientation, race, educational background, ethnicity, disability, your mental health, etc. So we cover a very broad spectrum. And what we like about the 2018 Census and Inclusion Survey is that it gives us that broad spectrum and that benchmark. So when we do run our 2020, we are using the exact same demographic questions to have a comparative analysis. And then as far as the whistleblower practice, I believe that the chief will answer that.
Yeah. Thank you, Alicia. Thanks, Ricky. And I also want to acknowledge, before I get into that, thanks to Deputy Bigra, who was the sponsor for the inclusion strategy before it was developed. And now thanks to Cecile Hammond, Deputy Hammond, who owns the strategy under her branch in the support area with Ricky and Alicia. So the whistleblower conversation or question, there are processes ongoing at YRP that allow for people to come forward on the employee relations side in relation to harassment in the workplace and under the Police Services Act. I know General Counsel Jason Fraser will turn on his video here shortly and provide a little bit on the new act coming and refining our processes. Jason.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just to echo what the Chief has said, literally we seem to be echoing because I'm in the same room. The Community Safety and Policing Act will actually prescribe a requirement for us to have a procedure in terms of our members making reports with specific provisions and actions that might be available if there's any allegations of reprisal. So that legislated system is coming into effect, but I know in advance of that, York Regional Police is working with proposals in the areas of professionalism and ethics to develop a strategy within before the statute comes into effect, but also the statute and the whistleblower protection provisions under the Act will be overseen by the new Inspector General when that comes into effect, likely sometime next year, perhaps.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Fang, does that answer the questions that you had?
Yeah, I'm okay for now. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Other questions, comments from board members? I'm not seeing any at this time. Thank you very much. So with that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder for our annual report on equity and inclusion strategy and a presentation as well. Ms. Fang, would you like to move that for us today? Thank you very much. And could I have a seconder, please? Mayor Bevilacqua, thank you very much. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We are on to 7.2, and that's the purchasing bylaw quarterly report.
Yes, Madam Chair, through you. As you mentioned, it is the quarterly report related to our purchasing bylaw. And I'm asking the board to receive the report and subject to any questions you might have. If you do have any, Manager of Financial Services, Jeff Channel, can address those questions.
Thank you. Any questions from board members?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Mr. Cooper, go ahead.
My question, Madam Chair, is I was curious as to why for tactical uniforms there was only one bid submitted.
Thank you very much, and through you, Chair. Good morning. The Fundy Tactical is the vendor. The tactical uniforms are in fact almost a direct purchase at this point. We didn't solicit a second quote on this. It just happens to be the materials and the uniform that we use for the tactical uniforms. We only received one bid. We were expecting more, which is why we initiated a tender process on this. Unfortunately, we didn't get a second bidder, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper, would you like to move this?
Sure.
7.2, please. And Chair Emerson, could you second that for us? Thank you very much. All those in favor? And that's carried. 7.3, Chief, regarding helicopter pilots and maintenance services.
Yes, Madam Chair, through you, once again, asking for the board to receive this report, and I'll turn it over to Jeff to offer a few comments and highlights on the report. Jeff.
Thank you. And this report's in front of the board. As the board approves proposals that are greater than $2 million, we're seeking approval to Canadian Helicopters for the helicopter pilots and maintenance services contract totaling $2.259 million. The proposal that's been submitted by Canadian Helicopters was the highest scoring technical submission and the lowest price submission, resulting in the highest overall proposed scoring, which represents the best value to the board. I'll draw the board's attention to the last page of the report, section 5 under financial. This award is coming in above the line item that's in the proposed 2021 operating budget, above by $123,000 in 2021. We are expecting to have a reallocation within the air support unit in order to manage to the bottom line. There will, however, as part of the 2022 process, likely be a pressure brought forward for this contract increase. And with that, I'll answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Fang, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Virginia. I just want to take this opportunity to understand our air support unit a little bit. I believe this is the new helicopter we add to the unit. So we have previous helicopters, and it seems like we outsourced the pilot to a third party, but do we have our own pilots as well? Working together, driving the helicopter, or it's completely outsourced to third party? And also, my understanding is YRP is probably one of the very few police services in Ontario has a helicopter. So we do rent it out, the service, to the other police services as required. So I'm wondering how frequent we have been sharing these services with the other PSB 2020 and prior, the normal days. And also, do we have any revenue generating opportunity as a result of those shared services? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Feng, and through you, Chair. The answer to the first question relating to pilots, pilot and maintenance has always been outsourced. So since 2003, when our police service received delivery of this helicopter, it's referred to as a Eurocopter 120. It has outsourced its pilots and maintenance services from day one. This is the original. This is that current helicopter. So the next helicopter, that was really the part two of your question, that's in the capital plan. But we're starting the feasibility of our procurement process around that new helicopter, the replacement helicopter that hasn't yet started yet internally. So this is pilots and maintenance on the existing helicopter. Part three is around shared services. And yes, we offer the operational protocol is the real-time operational center can receive requests from other police services for use of the helicopter, and depending on the operational demands of the time can be flown into other jurisdictions. It happens very rarely, Ms. Fang. If it's even once or twice a year, it would surprise me if it was more than that. I would suggest maybe 10 years ago, there was a little bit more use of our helicopter in other areas. We do attach a fee to it, and it's at a full cost recovery as part of the shared services, but we have not actually billed that fee in a couple of years. So I would imagine the last time we did that was probably in the 2016 to 27. I could definitely return the answer to you after the meeting.
Thank you, Jeff.
Are there any other questions regarding the helicopter pilots and maintenance service? Seeing none, I wonder if I could have Mr. Purchell move this and Ms. Fang, if you would second that, please. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We're at item 7.4, installation on radio communication tower. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an annual reporting requirement by YRP on the status of communication tower agreements in relation to the board's policy. And I'll turn it over to Jeff to provide a couple of comments on this.
Thank you, Chief. And I'll just draw your attention to section 5 in the report on page 2, table 1. And it gives the contract status and revenue by location. There are, in fact, 2 different tower locations generating 6 contracts, totaling in last year 173,906. This is very similar to revenues realized in previous years around telecommunications revenues. And with that, Chair, I'll answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you. Questions? Ms. Fang, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I guess just for my own information, please. For these communication towers, so it seems like YRP own these towers and then we rent it out to those telecommunication companies, not the other way around?
Yes, that's correct, Ms. Fang. York Regional Police does own several communication towers, and the board several years ago realized that there's a revenue opportunity, that there are several private firms, including the RCMP as well, that could make use of our towers. The policy gives a different fee based on height requirements. So the higher up the tower that you want to attach your equipment, the greater the fee. That's effectively the board's policy.
Ms. Fang, any follow-up?
I'm just wondering, is it a common practice that police services own their own communication towers across Ontario or Canada?
Thank you, Ms. Fang, and through you, Chair. It really depends on the region that you're speaking to. Durham region, for example, leases almost exclusively all of its tower locations, whereas to our west in Peel, they own most of theirs. We are a mix. We run off of regional tower sites as well as our own, as well as private entities where we're leasing like an apartment complex, that kind of thing.
So my last follow-up question, please, is based on the revenue here, Are you comfortable the revenue is sufficient to cover any maintenance costs, any costs incurred with maintaining these towers?
Thank you, Ms. Fang. And we do have an ongoing program in the capital budget to repair, and it's effectively straightening the towers with using detention. And yes, that's correct. The revenues do exceed the amount that we're spending on the annual maintenance costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Where I'm getting at is usually in a lot of companies, they do regular review of their fixed assets to determine if it makes sense to own it or actually lease it. So this is where I try to assess.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Fang. And as our last review of the radio system occurred in 2012, 2013 during the purchase of our radio system. At that time, with the assistance of our consultant at that time, that our mixed use of owning some, renting others was the best method. They are very prohibitively expensive actually now to buy the land to build the towers. So I'm happy to say that, I think we have the best mix and most efficient mix of tower sites and locations.
Thank you very much. I was on the board when we first talked about renting some space on the towers, and I remember quite distinctly the members were quite taken back by the ingenuity of staff to raise some dollars on a little bit of real estate that we had. It was new and it was cutting edge, and for us probably not new across the province or across Canada, but it appeared to be a very innovative idea to have some revenue stream. So it sounds like it's working well, and we'll continue along with it. Are there any other questions regarding 7.4? I'm not seeing any at this time. I wonder, Mr. Cooper, if you would move this, and Ms. McCullough, if you would second this motion. Thank you very much. All those in favor? And that's carried. We are at 7.5, and that's the annual report on dispersal of assets.
Yes, Madam Chair, through you, just asking that the board receive this report on the disposal of assets. As you can see, the report is advising the board of our surplus of vehicles, parts, computers, and scrap metal in 2020, which totals $561,280. If you have any questions, Jeff can by all means answer those, but the highlights are contained within the table 1 at the bottom, page 61.
Thank you very much. Any questions regarding the annual report on disposal of assets? Ms. Fang, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Jeff. Can you please kindly explain the deficit? The reason, is it timing, or we dispose less assets as compared to planned, or we dispose the same amount of assets but lower market price given pandemic? What's the reason, please?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The primary reason is the number of disposal of the vehicles at 95. Last year, we were at 112. And this is timing related. So we had at year end 28 vehicles work in progress, which is meaning we're turning them on to into service later into 2021. And just because of that, there wasn't the normal cycle of disposals. We would expect that revenue to rebound here in 2021.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, Ms. Fang, would you move that, please? And Mayor Bevilacqua, would you second that for us? Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. 7.6 annual report on public complaints. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair, through you, as you can see, it's an annual report on our public complaints, and I'm asking the board receive the report pursuant to the Police Services Act, respecting the administration of our complaint system under Part 5 of the Police Services Act. I will turn it over to the manager of general counsel, Jason Fraser, to provide some comment. And I will mute myself.
Good morning again, Madam Chair and members of the board.
Morning.
Thank you. Just to briefly say that, as you'll see in the report, our number of public complaints has gone up from last year. 179 conduct complaints and 1 service or policy complaint versus 159 and 3 last year. So a small increase, but still, given the size of our police service and the number of interactions we have in the community, it's still a very low number compared to just about any other police service in the province. And I do note that although the number of complaints are up, the number of officers involved in those complaints are actually down. So we have fewer officers involved in these disputes. And I can also say that consistent with the trend that has been going on for the last number of years now, the majority of the complaints are either screened out by the OIPRD or they are resolved at a very early opportunity. So ultimately, we only had 1 officer disciplined, and we had no discipline hearings in relation to a public complaint this year. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions?
I'll move receipt, Madam Chair, and changing times, Jason, everybody's complaining about everything. So there's no difference. And nice haircut, sir, but I'll move receipt. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
Thank you,
May I have a quick question, please?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Mr. Purchell, would you second the motion and then we'll have the question? Thank you. Go ahead, please, Ms. Fang.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Jason. Just a quick question on police services comparison, page 69. I'm wondering why are those comparisons chosen? And does it make sense just to show the Big 12 comparison? Why are those particular 6, please?
Give me one moment, please. I have to get to my reports. I'm down to 1 screen today. I usually have the 2. Oh, I think I've got different numbering as well.
The table.
Okay, yeah, I think part of it is we've routinely compared ourselves to the same police services given their like size and like demographics. So it tends to be a similar form of policing as what we'd be engaged in. Certainly we have good comparisons between us and Peel and Durham since they're similar GTA police services, and the other police services as well that we compare against are similar in size and similar in terms of their composition of their communities.
What about Toronto, please?
It's quite frankly, it's difficult to compare us to Toronto. I would, if we did, we would compare quite favorably because I think given the density and urban nature of Toronto, they have far more complaints per capita than most of the police services in Ontario. But again, I think that's unique to their urban makeup, as opposed to saying that they, that we're significantly better.
Very good, thank you. So this is what I tried to address during the collective bargaining in terms of cherry picking of comparables. So when it comes to compensation, we very much like to compare to Toronto and Peel. When it comes to other quality services, we distinguish York from Toronto. So thank you.
Oh, see, now you're going to get me blackballed by my association.
Any other questions? We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. 7.7, the annual report on solicitations and donations.
Yes, Madam Chair, through you, this is an annual report on our solicitations and donations in relation to the board's governance and donations and sponsorship policy. I'll turn it over to Jeff to provide some further comments. This is a little shorter this year than usual, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Chief. And through you, Chair, the list this year totals $571,000 comprised of cash and non-cash donations. This report follows a report received at the April 22nd meeting where we saw pre-approval for funds related to retired Chief Eric Jollis' farewell. At that time, $375,000. The report is now reporting cash received totaling $490,000. $99,750. That is the substantial item in the report this year. It's a much smaller list due to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And with that, I'll answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Madam Chair, if I may, Chief, where does the retirement party sit? Is that off the table now, or are we having one? Or he's got the money. I guess the money's in the coffers. But is there going to be a retirement function for the former chief?
Yeah, we are currently having those discussions, Chairman. We have, just to give the board some indication of what we've done so far, through Karen Richards, we've reached out to every donor to ensure that anybody who did want money back or a refund was provided that. And a high number of people were satisfied to still contribute to the fund, which, as you know, supports the wellness of our folks and a number of ongoing programs at YRP. As far as the event goes, we're trying to determine how we can host that event. So what I would say, sir, is we are hoping to host an event that highlights previous Chief Jolliffe, either as a keynote or with many of the folks that would have been attending his retirement or previously scheduled retirement function would be invited to this event as well. So that's sort of the go forward right now, still in discussions as to what that looks like and when we could possibly host it. But it is alive and well, and we are going to recognize the previous chief in some form of a larger function. Just what it looks like right now with COVID and everything else and timing is kind of still up in the air.
Thank you, sir. I just wondered, the fall is probably closest you'll get to it. But anyways,
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move receipt of the recommendation.
Thank you. Ms. McCullough, would you second that motion, please? Thank you very much. All those in favor? And that's carried. 7.8 Annual Report on Freedom of Information Access Requests.
Yes,
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I'm just asking the board to receive this report on the annual report on the Freedom of Information Access requests. As you can see in the initial point of the report, we received 2,650 requests, and 16 access decisions were appealed to the Information and Privacy Commissioner in 2020. If there's any questions, I can turn it over to Jason Fraser to answer, but that essentially is the highlight.
Are there any questions? I'm not seeing any at this time. Mr. Cooper, would you move that for us, please? Mr. Purchell, would you second that? Thank you very much. All those in favor? And that's carried. We are at item A in our 8 in our agenda, reports of the Executive Director. Mafalda, are you there?
I'm here.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The first report, accessible customer service feedback. Under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or the AODA, organizations have to have processes which outline how they receive and respond to feedback on how they provide goods and services to persons with disabilities. Further to the board's accessible customer service policy, the Executive Director will collect and respond to feedback on how the board provides customer service to people with disabilities, and the Executive Director will report back on an annual basis on the feedback and the responses and actions taken. And in 2020, the board did not receive any feedback from the public on this matter. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you. Questions for Mafalda? I'm not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mr. Purchell, Ms. Fang, all those in favor? And that's carried. The second item, 8.2, proposal for performance evaluation review. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am recommending to the board today the procurement of the services of an external consultant to establish a new performance review process for the chief of police position. In this case, I'm proposing Verity Consulting, which provides the best value among the vendors that we considered, and we considered 3 under the purchasing bylaw. I think it's important to retain the services of a third party for this review to obtain the appropriate expertise, but also to develop an evaluation process for the chief that is fair and provides an unbiased perspective in the process. I think this approach will continue to instill the confidence in the oversight role of the board. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Questions of Ms. Alpalino? Ms. Fang, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mafada. Thank you, Virginia. I agree with the approach. I just have one request, please. Of the meeting, perhaps, Mafada, if you don't mind, share the contract with the board.
I most certainly will.
Thank you. I can move it if no other questions.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to have a look and see if there are any other questions. And I don't see any of board members. Could I have a seconder for this, please? Vice Chair Bevilacqua, all those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any other items, Savalina?
No other items, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We're at unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business at this time? Not seeing any. Do we have any other business? Not seeing any. Could I have a motion to convene in private meeting for the purpose of considering confidential items pertaining to legal and